Well, you're watching the Lancaster County Democrats Watchful Citizens Show. Today's guests are caucus leaders for the upcoming caucus on February 9th that the Democratic Party is sponsoring across the state to select our presidential Democratic nominee for 2008. And if you don't mind, I'd like to get to know you a little bit better. If you'd be so kind as to tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, your education, that kind of stuff. Chris?
My name is Chris Kelly. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Gerontology at University of Nebraska at Omaha. I'm teaching in Lincoln on the UNL campus. My background is in political science and aging, and certainly some of the issues such as the future of Social Security and Medicare are very much on my mind at this point, seeing the direction of these policies for our baby boom generation. And again, it seems a good time to get involved in this conversation.
Very good. Amanda?
I was born and raised in Lincoln, and my parents are still from Lincoln area, and my mom was raised in small towns, and my dad was actually raised in small towns in New York, so he moved when they moved here. And I work actually for a contract service agency in the state for Cali Services, and through Washington Insurance Company. And I just got involved with this because I think it's something I enjoy doing. That's my nature.
Good. And Howard, what? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I was born in St. Louis, grew up in Arkansas, went to school in Arkansas, and then in Colorado. Mm-hmm. I did get involved politically in Colorado at one time with a group called SANE, and did some speaking with reference to same nuclear policy. I've taught at a college, and I'm a retired United Methodist pastor. Served churches in Omaha, Blair, and Lexington, and served on the conference staff for 6 years.
Very good. Well, this is an exciting time for Democrats, both nationally and locally. We're getting such a diversity of people, and that's a good thing. If you don't mind, I'd like to know what some of the issues that you feel are the most pressing before us, both locally and nationally. I know Chris started to talk about Social Security, which I think too often younger people are ignoring, and there's some really major changes facing us that could impact the ability for people to retire in the future. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I think that President Bush painted an incorrect picture in terms of a crisis that could only be solved through the creation of private retirement accounts. And I think the Democratic candidates, and I think Senator Obama deserves a lot of credit here, have really put forward the idea that incremental changes can keep the status quo, can keep this very popular and very successful program going, and not put people's Social Security accounts at risk.
Amanda, what are some of the things that really are a huge issue for you?
One would be universal health care for citizens, because there's a lot of people who are underinsured or lack insurance, and I can see that every day at work myself. The economy right now is very poor. There's a lot of people out there who are having to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and I don't think that we should live in a society where you have to struggle to make ends meet when you have a college education and you have a college degree and you've gone to better yourself, but you can't further that because you're lacking of an ability to gain employment. And I think it's going to be a very big one to have the war in the Middle East, because that's a very big focal point, because it is part of the Republican tactic right now, the fear-mongering and the terrorism. So I think it's just going to have to be brought forth that right now we don't have a viable means to get out, but we need to do something so we can start to reach a point where we can withdraw our troops and bring them back home so that they can have a life, a safe life, and that we can also keep Iraq and other countries in the Middle East stable.
Very good. Howard, what are some of the issues that really are motivating you?
Well, one of them is the so-called war in Iraq. Mm-hmm. Our president named the war completed a number of years ago we're in an occupation, we're no longer in a war. And if you're in an occupation, then you have a good framework for really withdrawing troops. Healthcare is another one, universal healthcare plan. Number of studies make it very clear that Social Security can be secured for everyone with relatively minor changes, but they need to be made now. And the economy is another. Amanda mentioned people who work several jobs. More than 50% of the families, households in Nebraska make less than $30,000 a year. $30,000 a year is just barely above what the federal government defines as poverty for a family of four, which means, at least in Nebraska, the economy is a very serious issue. And there's no way to get out of poverty if all you're making is minimum wage, or even if you were making $10 an hour, you just barely scrape out of the poverty level, because that only gives you $20,800, which is $200 above poverty level. Education is a major issue. The infrastructure of the United States, the highways, the railroad systems, the bridges, and what could be called the soft infrastructure, which is education, the park system, recreation, care for our natural parks, and those areas. So there's lots to work on. And the other issue that concerns me very much is, again, what has been called corporatation, or corporatocracy. In terms of, like I said earlier, we need to get back to we the people rather than we the corporation, which is what the nation has basically become. And the Constitution provides for we the people. It doesn't provide for we the corporation.
Very good. So as we talk about issues, what do we see locally as issues that are going and concerning us? Do any of you have any thoughts of particular issues locally that you feel as though need to have a stronger voice from we the people, which I think is a great statement?
Well, I think one is the death penalty. We need to get rid of it. The second is adequately funding our education system.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The Constitution of the Nebraska Constitution says that every person between the ages of 5 and 21 shall receive free public instruction. If that's what the Constitution requires, then we need the taxes and the funding to make sure that they not only get it, but that it is good public instruction. And we're not doing that at the present time. And we can't do that if people continue to push for tax cuts.
And we continue to ignore the fact that our corporations and our agribusiness are not paying their fair share of taxes. I think that's another issue that we miss quite often is that the middle class gets taxed a lot, but that there are certain entities in our society that are not going and carrying their fair share of taxes. So I would so much agree with you.